Happy Emmy Day to all, and to all a good Emmy Day. Welcome to Gold Derby's annual pre-show broadcast slugfest for the 2017 Emmy Awards. I'm Zach Laws. Joining me now are Rob Licuria and Sam Eckmann. We're going to talk about our predictions throughout all of the categories tonight. I want to start right off the bat with Best Drama Series. Last year's winner, in fact, the last two winners, Game of Thrones is not competing. We have 5 brand new first season shows and 2 returning shows that are all looking for their first wins in this category. The nominees are Better Call Saul, The Crown, The Handmaid's Tale, House of Cards, Stranger Things, This Is Us, and Westworld. I want to start with you, Rob. Conventional wisdom says go with Stranger Things. It won the most awards, or it won a ton of awards at the Creative Arts Emmys. But what do you think?
Well, I'm going with The Handmaid's Tale, and I have been for a while, and I have been very tempted to switch to Stranger Things. That's the consensus, right? Everyone seems to believe, especially after the Creative Arts Emmys last weekend, that Stranger Things overperformed, especially in the main title, design, and theme song categories, where really it maybe didn't need to win those. So a lot of people thought that was a really good harbinger for it winning tonight. I'm not convinced. I think it's still lost 9 times. The Handmaid's Tale won 3, and I still think it's so timely and so important of a series that I'm thinking that it still might win. And I have been saying that for a while, and I refuse to switch. So I'm just being stubborn, typical stubborn me. I'm not switching. So that's where I'm headed right now.
Well, we should say, Rob, at the Creative Arts Emmys, Handmaid's Tale did pick up some hardware. It won 3 awards, and I think 3 awards that we weren't expecting. Awards for Alexis Bledel, awards for cinematography and art direction. So does that show some strength to your argument?
Yeah, I think it does, especially Alexis Bledel. I mean, many of us thought she had a pretty good chance, but I was thinking that Ann Dowd probably was going to win that one for The Leftovers. And look, it still won 3. It's got 2 directing nominations for Reed Morano and Kate Dennis, and a writing nomination for Bruce Davis. It's got Elisabeth Moss in there and 2 supporting actresses. So that is really a very impressive showing for it tonight. And as the night progresses, if Handmaid's Tale starts picking up a couple, I'm going to start feeling really validated that, yes, it actually is in with a shot. If it's not Stranger Things, it's probably Handmaid's Tale, right? I don't think Stranger Things is so locked in and so out in front that we can just wipe the rest of them off as, you know, not being contenders. So I'm actually feeling really good about that prediction. Probably in about 4 or 5 hours, I'm probably going to be feeling really bad. But right now, I'm just determined that this is the lawyer in me. I am just going to fight for that client until the very last second. And right now, The Handmaid's Tale is the one paying the bills.
Sam, give us your take. What do you think is going to win? Does Rob have a point, or is he just crazy?
Rob's always crazy, but he does have a point this time. I'm not going with Handmaid's Tale. I'm going with Stranger Things. I think it's going to be close. I could really make a case for all 5 of the new shows being nominated. I could set you up for why each one could win. But Stranger Things just has so much of the zeitgeist more than any other show, I think. The Where's Barb memes wouldn't go away. The title treatment memes wouldn't go away. And now we've carried that over right into anticipation for season 2 is right around the corner. So I think the timing is all kind of perfect for that. And it won casting at the Creative Arts, which is a great harbinger of winning Best Drama Series. Handmaid's Tale could still eke it out. I feel like the one thing against Stranger Things would be that I would say it's more of a director show than an actor show or director-writer show. I think it's going to win Best Drama without taking an acting award home. But I think at the end of the day, that kind of zeitgeist factor and where it is in pop culture is going to cement it in a very close race.
We should point out, whether Stranger Things or The Handmaid's Tale wins, it's going to be a historic victory because it's going to be the first time at the Emmys one of these big series awards in either drama or comedy has gone to a streaming service. Netflix in Stranger Things' case, Hulu's in The Handmaid's Tale. Which brings up to the point. Are they going to just ignore that, or are they going to go with one of their old standbys? NBC, This Is Us, a big return for broadcast. HBO, Westworld, they win series awards all the time. AMC with Better Call Saul. Do you think that maybe there is a bias against awarding streaming services in these top series categories?
I don't know if it's a bias, but I think it's harder for streaming shows to maintain momentum and maintain buzz because all the episodes get dumped at once. So, you know, you only get so much press and so much coverage versus a series with 13 to 20 episodes that gets, you know, 13 to 20 weeks of coverage, and it's much easier to build momentum that way, I think. And that's why with season 2 around the corner, that's why I argue that Stranger Things could do it. I don't know if there's a bias. I think it's just something that's kind of stacked against them by their nature.
Is there the possibility, Rob, with 5 brand new shows, this is unprecedented in the history of the Emmys, 5 brand new first season shows, could they all take votes away from each other? And could we see one of these shows like House of Cards or Better Call Saul win their first award? You remember, with the popular vote, you only need about 17% of the vote in order to win.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Zach. I think it's unlikely that either Better Call Saul or House of Cards will take this out, but it's a very good point because there are 5 new shows and there's a lot of passionate support behind all of them, and that with this new system, really anyone could, you know, kind of eke out that win. We saw that happen with Tatiana Maslany. I don't think BBC America is necessarily that well watched amongst the Academy, and yet she had enough support to win last year. And the same thing could happen now. And by the way, how exciting is it that we have 5 new shows? That's never happened before. And it's so cool that so many of them are shows that are kind of really in the zeitgeist. They're hip, they're young skewing, they're sci-fi. They're not boring old dusty shows that we might have seen the Academy go for a long time ago. And by the way, I just wanted to follow up on what Sam said earlier. It's really important to mention that the casting award is a very, very good indicator of what, good precursor, I should say, of what usually wins drama series and comedy series. It's happened for the last few years, and Stranger Things did win that. So if you are going through your prediction center, you might maybe not want to pay attention to what I'm saying and stick with Stranger Things. It is the safe bet, but yeah, I've got to say, Zach, you're totally right. With all these new shows, it would make me so happy to see something like Better Call Saul kind of take this out, because AMC are putting a lot of effort behind that. That's really their only major player at the Emmys this year, and that would make me super happy if it's not like Stranger Things and not Handmaid's Tale, and then just something else kind of overtakes them both and makes us all look like complete idiots. That would be really cool. I'd love to see that.
Well, we've got a lot of categories to talk about tonight. Let's move on. We're going to be doing this kind of randomly. I want everybody to get a chance to talk about throughout the categories. Let's start with Drama Supporting Actor. The nominees there are John Lithgow in The Crown, Jonathan Banks in Better Call Saul, Mandy Patinkin in Homeland, Michael Kelly, House of Cards, David Harbour, Stranger Things, Ron Cephas-Jones, This Is Us, and Jeffrey Wright for Westworld. Last year's winner, Ben Mendelsohn, is not competing because he was moved over to guest actor. Sam, from the beginning, it's been John Lithgow, John Lithgow, John Lithgow. Is there the potential that there's a spoiler in this race, and who would that be?
Yeah, I always get super nervous anytime there's like an inevitable winner, because then, you know, that gives people kind of pause and time to go, wait a minute, I don't want to vote for the inevitable winner. I have John Lithgow in my predictions right now. He's just won so much and has had so much of the conversation thus far, but my runner-up, I think, is Jeffrey Wright from Westworld. He's a past Emmy winner for Angels in America. He has a great submission, you know, if submissions still matter. He has an awesome one. He's responsible for like 3 of the big jaw-dropping moments in Westworld, and he's a known Emmy quantity. So I'm going with him, but I am still, you know, ultimately picking John Lithgow to pull it through for the win.
He does have several Emmys, including 3 for Third Rock from the Sun and 1 for Dexter. Yeah. He won the SAG Award earlier this year for The Crown. Rob, you know, I mean, they love people who only have 1 season and they're done. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen The Crown. Is there an upset from maybe somebody like Ron Cephas-Jones, who we know is going to be returning, but I guess in a more limited role for This Is Us? Could the Stranger Things tie take along somebody like a David Harbour? What do you think?
Yeah, firstly, I think Jeffrey Wright is probably primed to upset because John Lithgow, as much as we love him and his performance in The Crown, I don't necessarily think it's that much of a lock. This category is stronger than many of us give it credit for. But yes, Ron Cephas-Jones would be my pick. In fact, I have him in number 2 as a spoiler, because what a revelation. I had never heard of him before. He's one, that really annoying term, the journeyman actor, the character actor, but he is that. He's not a famous face that you would see on the red carpet and have thousands of people swarming around him for autographs. He's not a massive celebrity, but he will be now because of this, because he's really, he was so impressive in This Is Us, and the nomination tells us that, he's a relatively unknown journeyman actor who made it into this category with all these heavyweights. I think he is a very good shot. And I think I've been doing this, and many of us have been doing this. I think we underestimate This Is Us a little, and I think it will probably pick up a couple of things tonight somewhere. It could be Christy Metz, it could be whatever, Milo Ventimiglia. But yeah, this could be the one where it's a huge spoiler. Remember, nobody saw Ben Mendelsohn coming last year. Really, I don't think anyone did. Maybe there was like 2 people out of 1 billion. So, like, again, we're going to see some surprises. Imagine if John Lithgow actually doesn't win. When Sam said just a minute ago, oh, look, I don't really want to vote for the front runner, I think that goes to a lot of people's minds. Whenever I'm voting in something, I'm always like, I don't want to vote. I want to vote for the underdog. And if that happens enough, John Lithgow's going to lose this, and that's going to be a huge shock.
And I mean, speaking of Ben Mendelsohn, I feel that a lot of people thought that he should have won for the first season, so the win in the second was probably a bit of a makeup. That being said, could that benefit somebody like Jonathan Banks in Better Call Saul, or Michael Kelly in House of Cards, or even Mandy Patinkin, who managed to get in even when Homeland got dropped from series and Claire Danes got dropped? Do these guys have a shot at all?
Yeah, they absolutely do. Oh, sorry, Sam. Yeah, I was just going to quickly say they absolutely do, and especially someone like Mandy Patinkin. Like, who the hell saw that coming? Like, and he's missed out a couple of times, and for him to make it through means that people are actually paying attention. Like, really, we have to be very clear about the Emmys. They do whatever they like, and they always like to surprise.
Sam, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they're playing catch up, like they did with Ben Mendelsohn, who won for probably a season later than he should have, then Michael E. Kelly could do the same thing. Whereas, he previously had that season where he was featured really heavily. Everyone thought he could win because he had such a prominent storyline, and he didn't. And another actor from his show, Reggie Cathy, won for the same kind of catch-up reason, where people thought he should have won the season prior, but he won for kind of a diminished role. So I think if there's a kind of Emmys not being right on the wave of popularity, then maybe he's the benefactor.
Let's go right along to Comedy Supporting Actress, where we do have last year's winner in the mix. That would be Kate McKinnon for Saturday Night Live. She's competed against 2 other ladies from Saturday Night Live, Vanessa Bayer and Leslie Jones, as well as 2 ladies from Transparent, Judith Light and Katherine Hahn, and Anna Klumsky for Veep. Rob, is Kate McKinnon just going to win this again? We know they love repeats, but as we saw last year, she could split the vote with her co-stars.
Yeah, she absolutely could, and that's what's giving me so much pause, because obviously Kate McKinnon had another very good year. She, this whole Donald Trump factor is going to, I think, be a big factor this year at the Emmys, and she will be one of the people who really kind of get the most out of it. And so I have her winning, but Leslie Jones and Vanessa Bayer are going to take votes away from her, particularly Leslie Jones. I think she's had a very good last few months, in particular. And yeah, so that gives me some concern, and that's why I'm looking at like Anna Klumsky, who is overdue, I guess, and she's been nominated 1,000 times, and she was probably going to be the benefactor. But the thing is, that didn't happen in guest comedy actor, where Hugh Laurie was going to kind of have that same trajectory. He didn't win. He was the only Veep player against a bunch of other guys who were from the same show. Dave Chappelle won that against 2 other Saturday Night Live people. So really, the vote splitting, it is a factor. But when you've got someone, I guess, who is really beloved, like Dave Chappelle, perhaps, or like Kate McKinnon, who is probably the biggest star of the group, then I guess you have to kind of go with your gut. But again, also the Transparent ladies, like, it was so great to see Katherine Hahn in there. Judith Light has an excellent submission, and if that matters. And so we've got, this category is really difficult, because is vote splitting a factor or not? We're going to find out very soon.
We will indeed. Sam, Saturday Night Live had its most popular season in years with the election of Donald Trump. It was up for, I should say, 22 Emmys, more than any other series. It's won a bunch at the Creative Arts Emmys, including 2 for acting. Is Kate McKinnon walking away with this? Or, could one of these transparent ladies upset? Judith Light, I think for a long time, a lot of us were thinking had a shot. But is she going to split the vote with Kathryn Hahn? Can Anna Klumsky finally win in a Veep sweep? This is probably the best year she's ever had for that.
Well, I just, if you're looking at vote splitting and stuff, Anna Klumsky would be the obvious benefactor and walk away with it. But then I think, well, if she didn't win for like last year when she had that huge takedown of Selena where she just finally tells Julia Louis-Dreyfus off and gets fired, like if she couldn't win for that, then like, are they going to have her win this year? And I think Kate McKinnon just has such her popularity is very high right now, and I would love to see either transparent lady take it home. I mean, Judith Light, I don't think has an Emmy, which is absurd. Like Judith Light should have every award imaginable. And Kathryn Hahn, I think, gives one of the best performances of the year. I wrote her an episode analysis article, and I stopped the episode and rewound her big scene 3 times because she is so freaking good. But I don't know, they're not in each other's submissions if they're looking at submissions, so they're not helping each other. So it's hard to tell which person transparent fans would unite around. So I am going with Kate McKinnon for the win. After SNL's big night on the creative arts side, I think she's got it.
Let's go to another kind of stacked category for actresses. This is Best Actress in a Limited Series or Made-for-TV Movie. We have 4 Oscar winners, including 2 from Feud, Betty and Joan, Jessica Lange and Susan Sarandon, and 2 from Big Little Lies, Nicole Kidman and Reese Witherspoon. We've also got Oscar nominee Felicity Huffman competing for the last time for American Crime, and Carrie Coon competing for Fargo. Rob, I mean, how do you even pick which of these 6 ladies is going to win? I mean, I know you're an Aussie, so are you rooting for Nicole Kidman?
Yes, I am. That's the only reason. Well, I think Nicole Kidman seems to have a lot of the buzz at the moment. But really, I've never seen a category like this before. Like, really, there are 4 Oscar winners, an Oscar nominee, and a Tony nominee. And maybe Carrie Coon is the one that stands out because she hasn't had the kind of film career that the other women have had. But honestly, how the hell do you separate them all? And again, we're going to get a bit of vote splitting in this one too. And I think that I'm very tempted to put in Carrie Coon because she's had the kind of year that people take notice of. She should have been nominated for The Leftovers, and she wasn't. But I think some voters are aware of that. And she could easily take this out. But I'm still kind of going with the safe bet, which is Nicole. She gave a performance in Big Little Lies that I thought was revelatory, and she's having that kind of renaissance year. I don't think she's ever had a year like this before, where she's got all these movies coming out, and it just seems that that heat and buzz for Nicole has remained pretty high for a long time. And I think she'll ride that through and bring home that Emmy to its rightful place, the land down under.
She's just coming off an Oscar nomination for Line, and Big Little Lies is coming off of a big night at the Creative Arts Emmys, where it won several awards, including for Best Casting. Sam, I think for a long time, a lot of us thought Jessica Lange, she's won several Emmys. She's a 2-time Oscar winner. She's playing a real person. It's a transformative role. Is she still a threat to take out Nicole Kidman? Or, is it what do you think?
Absolutely. And I still am predicting Jessica Lange to take it home. I don't know. It's very bizarre that there's like a consensus, sort of, if you look at the experts and everything around Nicole Kidman, because this is a stacked category. It's like an insane group of women, and I just don't see it going to plan. I mean, Jessica Lange plays a Hollywood star. It's about Hollywood. She transforms every 5 seconds. She does something Emmy-worthy. I just think it's some of her best work, and I don't think there's any slam dunk in this. I could see Carrie Coon being the benefactor of vote splitting for Big Little Lies and Feud, but I just think Jessica Lange, the writing favors her, so I think she will get more votes than Susan Sarandon for that show, and it's just such a big performance, and that's what they go for.
We should say there are some overdue ladies in this category. Reese Witherspoon never won an Emmy. Susan Sarandon doesn't have an Emmy yet. Nicole Kidman as well, Carrie Coon. So, I mean, could that help in some of these cases?
Yeah, if they're looking at it, and again, if they have trouble deciding, do I like Reese or Nicole better, then they might just go with Carrie Coon, doing a lot of great work on TV and on stage for many years, and she's not as famous as her fellow nominees, but I think it's a great part that could carry her through.
Let's look a little bit at the behind-the-scenes awards. Directing for a drama series, we've got two women in for The Handmaid's Tale, Reed Morano and Kate Dennis. We've got Vince Gilligan for Better Call Saul, Stephen Daldry for The Crown, Leslie Linka Glatter for Homeland, the Duffer Brothers for Stranger Things, and Jonathan Nolan for Westworld. Rob, conventional wisdom says Stranger Things is winning for drama series, therefore it's got to win for directing. What do you think? I mean, does that hold up here?
This one's a killer as well, because really we could make arguments for The Crown, for The Handmaid's Tale. It's kind of hurting my brain. I'm going with Stranger Things because in this category we have two Handmaid's Tales versus a Stranger Things, and we have The Crown, which could easily take it out. Stephen Daldry is a big name, but as is Jonathan Nolan for Westworld, and it's a very obvious directorial achievement when you're watching a show like Westworld. I thought so anyway. I was very tempted to go with Reed Morano because she is the kind of director auteur that has really set the tone of that whole show, and they may want to reward her for that. Kate Dennis is an Australian director. She's a very good television director, and her episode, The Bridge, is one of the highlights of that season. It's really difficult. I'm going with Stranger Things because it doesn't have another Stranger Things to compete against, and I think it's going to win on the directing side as opposed to the writing side. And that is, again, also a very obvious directorial achievement. Like it's a really interesting tone, and it's a beautifully paced, and it's got all those kind of little hallmarks that you need to tick off when you're looking at what's really good directing. I'm thinking that it will probably eat this one out.
Well, Sam, The Handmaid's Tale also picked up some tech awards at the Creative Arts, as we said, for cinematography and production design. So obviously they like aspects of the directing there. Does that help Reed Morano, or does she split the vote with Kate Dennis?
I mean, I'm not sure there's enough vote splitting there. I think, there's history of pilots winning this category, and I think the pilot of Offred from Handmaid's Tale is pretty amazing. So I think I want to say that'll get the bulk of the Handmaid's Tale votes, but I still just think Stranger Things is so unique in its look and its tone, the way it captures the 80s and cinema's version of the 80s, that you look at it and it's just such, the direction stands out so much and is very obvious. I actually think Westworld is more of a threat there because, that particular episode, there's so many different threads. It's a massive production, and those type of things can pull it out when you have so many different storylines that congeal into one. It's a pretty impressive feat, but I still think the overall uniqueness of Stranger Things will win out.
We should say also that 2 years in a row, this award went to a Game of Thrones episode, and in both cases, it was competing against another Game of Thrones episode. So this is one area where vote splitting doesn't seem to hurt. What about, they love film directors in this category, people like Martin Scorsese, Steven Soderbergh. What about a Stephen Daldry for The Crown? Does he have a shot at winning here?
Maybe. I feel like sort of the buzz for my problem is I feel like the buzz for The Crown has kind of faded a little bit in a way that like something like Stranger Things, another streaming show, hasn't. And I don't know. There's just there's other things that feel like a more gargantuan directorial effort than that one. So I'm not predicting it. I think I have it in 4th or 5th place. Be totally wrong like last year and get nothing right. So sure, he has a chance of winning.
Well, Rob, I think one of the reasons why they always went for film directors in this category is because they were able to make their shows feel very cinematic. But I think you can make the case that all of these nominees do feel cinematic. So is that what makes it even harder for us to choose a winner in this category?
Yeah, it is. It's really difficult, and there's not a lot of arguments that we can make against any of these shows apart from, for me, well, there's two Handmaid's Tales, so that's going to be harder for Reed Morano or Kate Dennis to pull this off. They're all very cinematic. They're all really very worthy, and you could easily make arguments, I suppose, for all of them. And I wonder given that the three of us and all of our colleagues at Gold Derby, we do sometimes tend to be in a bubble, and you know, and I say that about myself more than anyone else. And this bubble is where all the really cool stuff lives, and where a lot of the conventional wisdom, because we look at statistics and we look at past history. When I'm looking at what the experts at Gold Derby, who aren't in our little editorial bubble, what they're picking, or maybe what some of the other publications are looking at, The Crown is doing better than I expected. Because I agree with Sam. I think that The Crown's buzz has died off a bit. And yet, a lot of the older vote, if I want to put it that way, seems to be suggesting that The Crown is as hot as ever. So I'm worried about Stephen Daldry. He is a very well-known name cinematically. And so that gives me some pause, and I can almost see it happening now, where it could easily just win it and make me look really stupid, because I think that the Duffer Brothers are going to get something. They're not going to win drama series as far as I'm concerned, but they're going to get some reward to say, you really, you know, you made a big impact on popular culture, and here's your Emmy for directing. So that's where I'm at right now.
I think if The Crown does well, it'll be indicative of the old guard of Emmys is still very powerful, because it's sort of the old to go for.
I agree. Let's turn our attention, while we still can, to the writing side of things. Writing in a limited series or TV movie there, we've got Big Little Lies, David E. Kelley. We've got Charlie Brooker for Black Mirror, San Juniper. Noah Hawley for Fargo. Ryan Murphy for Feud. Betty and Joan for the pilot episode. For the Oscar episode. They are nominated for the pilot episode of Feud, Betty and Joan. He's nominated alongside Michael Zamm and Jaffe Cohen. And we've also got Richard Price and Steven Zalian for The Night Of. What are you guys predicting? Rob, David E. Kelley, is he going to win this in a Big Little Lies sweep? Or could it go to The Night Of, which did pick up a lot of hardware at the Creative Arts Emmys?
Yeah, again, I sound like a broken record, but this one's tough because it's so tough. Big Little Lies, firstly, David E. Kelley. Okay, that's all you got to say. And then secondly, he wrote the whole series, which people find quite impressive. But how many Emmys has David E. Kelley been nominated for and won for writing? Maybe a few, but it's not. I don't think he's necessarily the threat that many of us think he is. And I think a name like Steve Zalian and a show like The Night Of, this could be where it actually does it. And if it's neither of those two shows, then beats the hell out of me, because Feud, you got the vote splitting situation, and Noah Hawley with Fargo. I don't think Fargo was as buzzy this season as it was in previous seasons. So I'm going with David E. Kelley because he wrote the whole thing, and the voters generally do find that quite impressive. But I'm concerned about The Night Of, and in fact, personally, I'd love to see The Night Of.
But what you're talking about, Rob, Sam, I want you to comment on this. It didn't help last year's nominee, The Night Manager. He had written the entire series, and he ended up losing to one of 3 nominees from The People versus O.J. Simpson. So, Sam, I mean, what are your thoughts on this category? Can an upset by something like the Night Of point the direction towards a limited series win?
Oh, I just predict I'm going to get this category wrong, because I really don't know how you can say one is ahead of the other. Right now I have David E. Kelley for Big Little Lies, but San Junipero, I think the writing stands out and is really emotionally effective in that, and it's a self-contained TV movie against all these limited series. So is that a threat to pull out a surprise win? I don't know with this one. I'm going for David E. Kelley. I have, 10% confidence that I'll get it right.
Well, what about one of the 2 Feud episodes? Could this be a place where they choose to reward that show if it's not going to win anywhere else, or is it going to split the vote with itself? What do you guys think?
I think, the winner is kind of a powerful episode because it's about the Oscars, it's about awards, and we're at the Emmys, so that could be a thing that they gravitate towards. I assume that that's going to get more votes here than the pilot, but I'm not sure that there's a favorite. I would think Feud. I think Feud is a little more powerful and threatening in the directing, to be honest. than in writing. Has Ryan Murphy, mixed name names. Ryan Murphy. I don't think he's won a writing award. They keep kind of shunning him for writing, don't they?
Yes, no, he has not.
So that gives me a little bit of pause to go with Feud there. I think the other ones are a little bit more of a threat.
Gentlemen, don't go anywhere. I want to go ahead and invite on our next group of panelists, Daniel Montgomery, Tony Ruiz, and Tom O'Brien. Guys, go ahead and jump on. Stay right where you are, guys, because I want to talk about another writing category, the category for variety series writing. There we have Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, Saturday Night Live, Full Frontal with Samantha Bee, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and The Late Night with Seth Meyers. So we have 4 talk series and 1 sketch series. Rob, could Saturday Night Live stand out as the apple in the bunch of oranges here?
Yes, it could, especially in a year like this, where many people were going to Saturday Night Live for kind of that comic solace after a week of exhausting, terrifying social media posts about what was going on politically. And I think they had a very good year in that respect. But so did John Oliver. You know, his more journalistic tone was really on point for many weeks during this whole Trump debacle. And so I think those two will be fighting it out. And I must say the Seth Meyers nomination is a little kind of left field for me. That show didn't do as well as it could have across the board. So I think that one's probably out. And then speaking of this political thing, you then have someone like Samantha Bee, who is kind of the newbie on the scene. She could be the apple in the cart of oranges, given that that is a female hosted show. So again, another very interesting and exciting category. But I think even though I'm going for John Oliver, Saturday Night Live is certainly a threat to take this one out.
Sam, real quick before you go, give me your take on this category. Do you agree with Rob?
I agree with him. I would also argue don't count out Stephen Colbert. I don't think he's going to win the top category, but this could be a place where they honor him. He made it a point to also get very politically involved and rant against Trump on many occasions, which could be a theme tonight. He's also a threat. I have John Oliver. I think the journalistic tone will help him win in the end, but Colbert is a bigger threat than people give him credit for.
Rob and Sam, thank you so much for being here. Good luck with your Emmy predictions. Now I'm going to turn things over to our friends Tony, Daniel, and Tom. Guys, thank you for being here. We talked about the race for drama series. I want to talk to you guys about a far less interesting category, the race for best comedy series. We only have 1 new nominee in that category, Atlanta, which won the Golden Globe. We have 2-time winner Veep trying to get a 3rd. We also have Blackish, Master of None, Modern Family, Silicon Valley, and Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Tony, are they just going to rubber stamp Veep, or is there the possibility that something like Atlanta can win?
I think there's a possibility that Atlanta could win, but Veep just seems unstoppable, particularly based on its wins at Creative Arts. It keeps winning casting, and I just think that with its nominations total this year, I don't see that they're tired of it yet. If anything, their love and admiration for it grows. So is Atlanta still possible? Yeah. I would have liked to have seen it. I mean, the only thing it was competing for at Creative Arts, I believe, was casting, and it lost that. So I just think that they're just going to go back and do Veep again.
And Daniel, we saw that Veep was more popular than ever at the Creative Arts ceremony. It picked up some awards that it's never picked up before. But, I mean, on the primetime ceremony, could we see Atlanta win for acting, for writing, for directing? Could that then signal a shift? I mean, let's not forget, it did win the Golden Globe.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about the Creative Arts Awards is that they're helpful except when they're not. And with Veep, it is helpful in the sense that it showed us that Veep is more popular than it's ever been before with the TV Academy. It won 3 Creative Arts Awards, which is more than it had ever won ever before. Last 2 years, it won Best Casting, and those were its only Creative Arts victories ever before this. And it has 17 nominations, more than ever before. But Atlanta only had that casting award. So losing it to Veep is significant because, you know, we've seen casting go to the best program winner every time in the last 2 years. But most of the fields where Atlanta is competing are tonight. It's writing, directing, acting, and series. And those are significant branches of the TV Academy. I mean, you know, if we see it winning writing, that's possible. Directing is possible. Actor it's currently the front runner. Then it could certainly win on the strength of those branches. But it's hard to see it happening given how much of a steamroller Veep seems to be with not just a few branches of the Academy, but all of them pretty much nominated it this year.
Tom O'Brien, we actually have an Emmy voter here, Mr. Tom O'Brien. What is your take on this race? Do you agree with these two gentlemen, or do you think that there's a spoiler amongst these other 5 nominees? Oh, Tom, we can't hear you. Can you try clicking out and coming back on? Thank you. We will get his take when he comes back on, but let's go ahead and go to another category. Because I think that all that's been said about this can be said. Let's talk about a much more interesting race, the one for Drama Supporting Actress. This is a brand new crop of nominees from last year's field. We have one previous winner, Uzo Aduba from Orange is the New Black, competing against Ann Dowd and Samira Wiley from The Handmaid's Tale, Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things, Chrissy Metz from This Is Us, and Thandie Newton from Westworld. Tony, just throw a dart at the wall, right, with this category. I mean, who do you even, is Millie going to get taken along in a Stranger Things sweep, or is there a different frontrunner here?
For the longest time, I would have said Thandie Newton would be the front runner, but I think Stranger Things is going to pull along an acting winner, and between Millie and David Harbour, I think Millie Bobby Brown is the perfect person. You know, she is kind of the embodiment of that show, and she has been everywhere. She was kind of the breakout star of the television season. She's not a strong front runner by any means. Like, you could make arguments for pretty much any of these nominees, but I think that the passion behind Stranger Things and the affection for Millie Bobby Brown within Hollywood is going to be enough to bring her along, but she is not a comfortable front runner. I think Thandie Newton could still win. I think Chrissy Metz could win. I think Ann Dowd and Samira Wiley could easily win. You know, this is going to be a really interesting category to watch.
Daniel, let's talk a little bit about Chrissy Metz. I mean, if there's anybody who has an Emmy story here, it's her. She was dead broke before she got this job. She was a complete unknown. The show is a breakout success. Does she have a chance still at winning this?
Oh, absolutely. This Is Us is one of the most popular shows of this season with the acting branch of the TV Academy. It was nominated for her, for Ron Cephas-Jones, for Sterling and Milo in lead actor. It has so much love from the TV Academy in the acting branches that it's impossible to say that she won't win. Certainly in this category, I think this is a genuine 6-way race. Literally, they could open the envelope and say any name, and I wouldn't really be entirely surprised. I'm predicting Thandie Newton at the moment, but if they announce any of the other 5, I'll probably kick myself equally, thinking, oh yeah, that made sense. I should have thought of that, because it makes sense equally, those other 5 women. So yeah, Chrissy Metz is absolutely in this. She's a breakout star. I think she would give a wonderful speech. I think Millie would give a wonderful speech. I mean, those would probably be 2 of the best speeches of the night, depending on if one of them won. So yeah, I mean, Chrissy Metz is absolutely in this. I think I have her probably second or third. Especially with the popularity of This Is Us. The actors branch love that show, so that's, I think, the biggest factor for her.
Tom O'Brien is back. Tom, is your mic working this time? Oh, we still can't hear you. Can you try just clicking out again? I'm going to try sending you something else, okay? All right, thank you. Gentlemen, while we're waiting, let me go into another category that seems like it's all locked up, Comedy Supporting Actor. There we have last year's winner, Louis Anderson for Baskets, Alec Baldwin for Saturday Night Live, Ty Burrell for Modern Family, Titus Burgess from Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and Tony Hale and Matt Walsh from Veep. Tony, you're a big Baskets fan. Can Louis Anderson win this again, or is Alec Baldwin going to be a part of a Saturday Night Live steamroller?
Can Louis Anderson win this again? Absolutely. This is a category that loves repeat winners. And when they find somebody that they really, really like, they will go back to it again and again. We've seen, Ty Burrell win this multiple times. We've seen Tony Hale win this multiple times. We've seen people win this in this category, not just 2, but sometimes 3 and occasionally even 4 times. But, the interesting thing about Alec Baldwin, I think Alec Baldwin is the front runner, and I think Saturday Night Live's steamroller is just kind of unstoppable. The one thing that will be really interesting to see is whether there's any kind of Trump fatigue with Baldwin. The fact that he's not a regular cast member of Saturday Night Live and he's in the supporting category. I mean, remember, we've only seen a Saturday Night Live performer win in the supporting categories once before. Kate McKinnon was the first to do it last year. So we don't necessarily have a lot of precedents for, we certainly have 0 precedents for a guest star being in enough episodes to go supporting and then winning for a variety series in this category. So I don't think that Alec Baldwin is as safe as we think it is. I'm predicting him right now, but I have Louis Anderson in second, and I think also Titus Burgess, who his performance in the Lemonade episode of Kimmy Schmidt is one that certainly everybody loves and keeps talking about. But even though I think that Baldwin is considered a lock, I think we follow that train of thought at our own peril.
Tom O'Brien, can you chime in here?
Try it again.
Yay!
Yay!
All right,
what did I miss?
Let's get your opinion on a comedy supporting actor. We were talking about this is we got last year's winner. We've also got Alec Baldwin, who's the front runner. But what about somebody like a Titus Burgess? We all thought he would win in season 1. He hasn't won yet. His role was far expanded this year. What do you think?
I think that I agree with Tony that I don't think Alec Baldwin is the lock we might think he is. We've assumed that all year. But I can but this category is rife for an upset, I think. I didn't expect Louis Anderson last year. And I think if anybody is to do it, I would say it'd be Titus Burgess. And well deserved. The Lemonade episode, he was just terrific in. And it was, I think of the locks that we have, my opinion, I'm still going for Alec Baldwin. But I think this might be one of the shakier ones.
Daniel, not only do we have last year's winner, but we've also got 2 other previous winners in this category, Ty Burrell for Modern Family and Tony Hale for Veep. Could Tony Hale or Matt Walsh, if Veep is going to start picking up more wins, could they win? Could Tony Hale win again, or maybe Matt Walsh for the first time?
Certainly. Tony Hale probably more likely than Matt Walsh. I feel like of the 2 of those, he's certainly obviously gotten more love from the TV Academy in the past. He's won twice. Matt Walsh has only now been nominated twice for this role. So I think between them, Tony Hale would be the stronger one. We've seen vote splitting sometimes happen and not happen. I feel like if you are a strong favorite, or if you're on a show that has that's dominant and is, if everyone is voting for one of 3 people, then one of those 3 people is going to win. In this case, I do feel like Matt Walsh does hurt Tony Hale, and Tony Hale hurts Matt Walsh in this case, because neither of them, even if they were alone, I don't think would be considered the front runner necessarily, and dividing support between the 2 on top of that makes it harder for them to overtake an Alec Baldwin, who's the only nominee for SNL, Titus Burgess, who had a big standout year. He's the kind of scene stealer they love. Louis Anderson, who won last year, and not only won last year, he won the first Emmy in this category under this new voting system, the plurality votes. So we know this has worked for him. Even when there wasn't that much support for Baskets last year, there's now twice as much support for Baskets this year with that Zach Galifianakis nomination. So yeah, Tony Hale does have a shot. I would say that would surprise me if he won.
Real quick before we move on to the next category, Tom O'Brien, your take on drama supporting actress and comedy series.
Okay, I did hear you guys, and I absolutely concur that almost anybody could take this. Ooh, Uzo maybe not, but certainly Ann Dowd, who's terrifying. Millie Bobby Brown, especially given the strength of Stranger Things in the creative arts, a lot of eyeballs are on that. Personally, I think it's between Chrissy Metz and Tandy Newton. Newton has one or two episodes that are just blew my mind, and Metz is such a relatable person, and we've not seen that many actresses who are so relatable, and plus the fact that the show is so beloved. I wouldn't be surprised if Chrissy Metz won. I still think it's going to be Tandy Newton.
Let's move on to another really competitive category. That is Best Actor in a TV movie or limited series. We've got two guys from the night of, Riz Ahmed and John Turturro. We've got Benedict Cumberbatch, a previous winner, coming back for Sherlock, The Line Detective. Robert De Niro for The Wizard of Lies. Ewan McGregor for Fargo. And Jeffrey Rush, another previous Emmy winner, for Genius. Tony, who's winning this category? I don't know. Just like drama supporting actress, I could just throw a dart at any one of these names. What do you think?
Isn't that the theme of pretty much every category this year?
Is every Emmy Awards ever. So
of every Emmy category, let's just throw darts. I think the night of's really impressive performance at Creative Arts. Not to mention, he really is the breakout star. The fact that they, Night of did so well at the Creative Arts, a series that aired, a year ago, and still maintained the nominations total that it got. I think Riz Ahmed is a really strong front runner in this category. I would not count out them going with, say, a Robert De Niro, who gives the kind of performance that tends to win in a category like this, playing a real person, playing somebody in recent current event history, which is. But I also would say maybe Jeffrey Rush is a possibility here. I mean, he's got kind of the same things going for him that De Niro does. But I think Ahmed, despite possible vote splitting with John Turturro, I think that Ahmed just is the person that I think they want to reward in this category.
Well, speaking of transformative performances, we've got people playing real people, Robert De Niro and Jeffrey Rush in Genius. We've got Ewan McGregor playing twins in Fargo. Daniel, could Emmy voters go for something that is a bit more, I guess, overtly Emmy-friendly in this field and reward one of those three men and overlook some of the subtler work of somebody like Riz Ahmed or John Turturro or even Benedict Cumberbatch?
I think I was predicting Jeffrey Rush in this category for most of the time until Creative Arts happened. Which might be dumb of me because we didn't see the acting branch decide anything for movies and miniseries at the Creative Arts Awards. So, going by what the picture editors and sound editors and sound mixers thought of the night of might be foolish, but it does feel like there's a sense of support broadly around the show. And it actually only lost one award that it was up for at Creative Arts, which was the casting award. So that's even stronger for it. It did overperform in the nominations in the acting branch. But yeah, I had Jeffrey Rush for the longest time, and then Creative Arts convinced me to switch away, and I'm wondering if that's dumb. A lot of people playing real people have won this award. A lot. I don't know. It's either half of the last 10 or 7 or 8 of the last 10 or something like that. I did the math once and I don't have it in front of me. But yeah, playing a real person in this category is very powerful. But Riz Ahmed feels a little bit like Rami Malek last year in just Best Drama Actor. He was up against an Oscar winner who was due even, Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey in the old days would have made sense, just like Jeffrey Rush and Robert De Niro seem like they would make more sense given what the Emmys usually go for. And they went with the subtle breakout star. And I think they might do that here too, because I don't know if I feel like Riz Ahmed is the more obvious choice for, if you're going to vote for the night of, he's the one you probably rally behind.
he also had a pretty good year at the Emmys as well, getting that comedy guest actor nomination for Girls. But Tom O'Brien, we should say when Benedict Cumberbatch won, it was the year of Fargo and The Normal Heart, where you had 3 frontrunners in this category. He was able to eke through that. Is there the possibility that some of these guys could split the vote and we could have a real shocker in this category? Oh, we lost you again. Oh. We'll try again. Well, does anybody else have does anyone else have an opinion on that?
Upset by Barry Pepper.
And that actually, wouldn't that be interesting? Because I think we've seen, based on the Barry Pepper win, we could see maybe a John Turturro win. That would not be out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, and he's won before, so we know they like him. It's interesting. I keep looking at this, and I keep feeling a Sherlock parallel in an interesting way, where we saw Sherlock the first year. It did really well. It overperformed at Creative Arts. It won 4 Creative Arts Awards. That sounds familiar. And it won Supporting Actor, Lead Actor, and Writing. I wonder what else is nominated for that this year. It's like, The Night Of. And so we could see it win those same 7 categories. I can't remember exactly which categories Sherlock won in Creative Arts, but it could win 7 in a similar fashion. And then Big Little Lies still wins Best Limited Series, potentially.
Let's take a look at the behind-the-scenes categories. I want to talk about comedy directing. We've got 3 Veep episodes, Groundbreaking, has turned into Barbara Walters, Justice and Blurb, 2 Silicon Valley episodes, Intellectual Property and Server Error, and 1 Atlanta episode, BAN. Tony, are all these shows going to split the vote and thus give the win to Atlanta, like we saw last year in some of these below-the-line categories? Or, excuse me, above the line, but behind the scenes?
I think this category comes down to 2. I think it comes down to the BAN episode of Atlanta, which was one of the most acclaimed episodes of the year. But if Veep is on a roll, if Veep just kind of runs the board like it could, then you got to think that maybe it's going to come in to either writing or directing. And I think its best chance is the season finale, Groundbreaking, because it jumps through 10 different time periods. It's directed by the showrunner David Mandel, who really came into Veep in season 5 and propelled it to its 2nd Emmy victory. So they could want to reward him. But I think I think this is probably Glover's best shot. If Atlanta doesn't win comedy series, and comedy writing is heavily more favored towards a different one, which we can talk about later. I think this could be the best place for them to reward Glover.
But Daniel, as our own Chris Beachum pointed out this week in an item, it's been about 40 years since they've given this award to an actor. You have to go all the way back to Alan Alda for MASH. So does that hurt Donald Glover? Do the directors seem to be territorial, in which case they're just going to go for the showrunner, which they often do?
It depends on their motives. And possibly that's the case. They gave it to Modern Family 4 years in a row, and then they gave it to Transparent twice in a row. So we don't really have anything to go on. They might have just loved those 2 shows for directing, although they didn't even nominate Transparent this year. But maybe they are a little territorial. But if they're territorial, they still have 3 episodes of Veep to choose from, and even though Groundbreaking is probably the likeliest bet of those 3. It's not as showy as certainly that Atlanta episode is. And we've got this voting system that's a year old, 2 years old if you count the expansion of the voting to online voting, to all members of the branch can vote in for the winners now instead of the small panels. So it's a very young voting system. I don't know if we're going to see any kind of animus against actors trying to direct show up here, or at least we don't have enough evidence to say that it necessarily will.
Tom O'Brien, is your mic working again? Can you hear us? I think he just froze. Can you hear us?
Let's see.
Wonderful. What kind of, we were talking about movie mini actor. We just moved on to comedy directing. Give us your take on those two categories.
You're freezing on me.
Can you hear me now? Can you guys hear me? Can Tony and Daniel hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Tom, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
All right. We were talking about earlier movie mini actor. We just finished talking about directing for a comedy series. Give us your take on those two.
Easy again. Yeah.
Daniel or Tony, can you let him know? I don't know.
We just got through comedy directing and movie mini actor. So do you have any thoughts on those?
Guys, I got to do it again.
Okay. Well, let's stick with directing. I want to talk about another big directing race. That is for the movie or limited series. We've got here Jean-Marc Vallée for Big Little Lies, Noah Hawley for Fargo, Ryan Murphy for Feud, Betty and Joan, Ron Howard for Genius, and James Marsh and Steve Zalian for The Night Of. Tony, it looks like Big Little Lies could win for Best Limited Series. Last year, they went with Suzanne Bier, who directed all episodes of The Night Manager, just as Jean-Marc Vallée did. Is he going to win this?
I think so. I think that's probably where they're going to go. But I think that particularly again, sounding, to quote Rob, sounding like a broken record. I think that there are other possibilities in this category. I don't think Vallée is a super strong front runner. I think they could easily give this to The Night Of, which I think they would probably err on the side of Stephen Zalian for that pilot, which was just an absolute masterpiece of television last year. They could also go with Ron Howard, who's the biggest name in this category, or they could go kind of a more flashy route and go with Ryan Murphy, who's won for directing before on the series side, and certainly that particular episode of Feud was all about Hollywood and had a lot of complicated tracking shots and things like that. It was certainly the flashiest episode, and but I think Vallée will probably pull this one out. But I would not be shocked if I see Zalian win this one.
It was a big surprise, Daniel, last year when Suzanne Bier won. I think we were all predicting The People versus O.J. Simpson to win just because it was so clearly the front runner in that category and won just about everything else it was nominated for. This year, it doesn't look like we necessarily have that. So can this category go any number of different ways?
Yes, actually, everything Tony said pretty much. The Night Of, and it's interesting because I was talking about how it might be foolish to consider The Night Of a strong frontrunner for an acting category based on creative arts, but for directing, that doesn't seem too far-fetched, because if you consider it had the best sound mixing, sound editing, cinematography, and especially picture editing, that might be something that the director's branch looks at and says, yeah, we like it too, although, of course, they finished voting before creative arts were handed out. But it could be something where they were on the same, potentially, wavelength and the same bandwagon. And Stephen Zalian does seem like the logical choice because it's the pilot, because he directed 7 out of the 8. And I have a bit of a gripe with the Emmys just in general. I feel like, having one person be able to submit an entire miniseries, and then Stephen Zalian, I guess because he only didn't direct one episode of The Night Of, he had to submit just one episode instead of he couldn't submit the other 7 that he directed. So I do feel like there's a bit of an imbalance there that the Emmys need to address so that it's a little bit more equitable into who gets nominated and for what for writing and directing for a movie or miniseries. I do think The Night Of is a strong threat here. I do think Feud is for that Oscars episode. I think this is a close one, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like I don't have any strong reason to go away from Big Little Lies, just because the last 2 years have been very sweep driven in terms of limited series. Olive Kitteridge swept both of these categories. The People versus O.J. Simpson only won one of the 2. It won for writing. but it still swept most of the other categories. And so under this voting system, it seems like if they like you, they just like you. And maybe we'll be wrong on one or two of these, but most of them seem like they might just go to Big Little Lies.
Stay with us, guys. I want to invite Amanda Spears and Andrew Carden to join us. Tom O'Brien, can you speak up?
Nope, the desert doesn't work.
Well, while I still have you guys on here, let me ask you about a real nail-biter of a category, and that is the category for Best Reality Competition Program. We have in here The Voice, The Amazing Race, American Ninja Warrior, Top Chef, Project Runway, and RuPaul's Drag Race. Tony, RuPaul, in its 9th season, really kind of came out with a bang. Is it going to unseat the frontrunner, last year's winner of The Voice?
I think so. It won several creative arts Emmys, including some that we didn't necessarily see coming. And with RuPaul, winning reality host for the 2nd time, I think this year is probably its year. That combined with some of the more political, some of the things happening in terms of the LGBT community, in terms of politics, I think this would be a great way to give a middle finger, if you were, to the Trump administration. So that's why I'm going with Drag Race.
Daniel, real quick before you go, give us your take on that category.
I think it's a two-way race between Drag Race and The Voice. I'm only hesitant because RuPaul's Drag Race hasn't been in on the Emmy radar all this time, and so now it just feels like, okay, well, it's in now, but why now? It feels unusual to because the Voice is so much more watched in terms of its just raw numbers. But I am going with RuPaul's Drag Race. That FU to the in terms of political climate is kind of compelling, given that United Shades of America also beat the incumbent in another reality category, dealing with similar issues of marginalized people. So, yeah, I'm going with RuPaul on this one.
Daniel and Tony, thank you both so much. Good luck on your predictions. Tom O'Brien, do you want to stick around for a moment since you've been having trouble?
Oh, please, yes.
Well, Amanda and Andrew, thank you both for being here. We've been jumping all over the place. I want to start off with another one of the big series races that is for Best Limited Series. We have Big Little Lies, Fargo, Feud, Betty and Joan, The Night Of, and Genius. Tom O'Brien, while your microphone is still working. Wait, can you hear us? I can't hear you anymore. We'll try again. Amanda, then. Last year, I think it was pretty obvious that The People versus O.J. Simpson was going to win this. It was the water cooler show. Is there an obvious favorite amongst these 5?
No, but while we're speaking about limited series, you promised me a bottle of that Joan Crawford nail polish, and I still have yet to receive it. So
I haven't gotten mine either. So
yeah, you promised. So I just kidding with you. I think right now it looks like Big Little Lies. I would predict The Night Of if it had aired in March or April. It's really, really hard to pick something that aired so long ago when you have 3 that just recently finished.
But Andrew, Night Of did pick up some wins at the Creative Arts Emmys. Is it still in this?
I think so. I'm perhaps the safer selection. I think it's likelier to probably win tonight, even if The Night Of does take limited series. But I think that The Night Of is in about as good shape. Entirely count Feud out. I think that it's plausible that it could win still lead actress. It could potentially even win supporting actor, maybe even one of directing or writing on that. But I think that Big Little Lies and The Night Of are, and because the odds are longer for The Night Of, I'm going with that for the win here.
Tom O'Brien, is your microphone working? I still can't hear you. Can you try? Thank you. Try again, please. While I've got you guys on here, let's talk though about some of the other nominees in this category, particularly Feud, which I think for a long time, sight unseen, we all thought would be the front runner. Does it still have a chance of winning? I mean, it kind of underperformed at the Creative Arts Emmys. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it could win if it starts picking up wins we're not expecting it in. If it overcomes vote splitting in supporting actor, if it overcomes vote splitting in actress, if Ryan Murphy finally wins a writing award, then yeah, it could start to look like the limited series winner. But it lost costumes, it lost production design, it lost a lot of those kind of awards that, since we're talking about Hollywood, how did it lose that? I mean, yes, it lost to The Crown, but they both basically had the same argument. They recreated these memorable dresses and sets, and you would think, I mean, if it were the Oscars, we would say, oh, they're going to go Hollywood. Well, the Emmys proved that they'll do their own thing.
Andrew, do you agree with her?
I do. And, we have to bring up the Olivia de Havilland's lawsuit that's going on right now. That can't be helping its prospects here. I wouldn't say it's devastating. I still think Feud could win. Its performance at the Creative Arts isn't really indicative of that happening tonight. I find it puzzling that both Stanley Tucci and Alfred Molina, because it wasn't either of their best episode whatsoever, and Alfred Molina especially had great episodes. He could have potentially gone lead. So that just baffles me. But still, I wouldn't count it out. I think it's definitely a little bit behind Big Little Lies and The Night Of. Not out for sure.
I want to talk about another really tight race, and that is for Best Actor in a Drama Series. We have two guys from This Is Us, Sterling K. Brown and Milo Ventimiglia. We've got Anthony Hopkins from Westworld, Bob Odenkirk for Better Call Saul, Matthew Rhys for The Americans, Liev Schreiber for Ray Donovan, and Kevin Spacey for House of Cards. Amanda, everybody, the frontrunner seems to be Sterling K. Brown, but do you think he's going to split the vote with Milo Ventimiglia? Do you think maybe one of these other guys is going to win?
Yeah, I'm going with Anthony Hopkins because I think that what people are forgetting about Milo is he was in the Gilmore Girls revival. He was in Heroes. He's been on television most of his life. So he's going to take votes. He's not going to just be one of those people who's just, the nomination is enough. So I think this is a very close race with, spoiler alert, Anthony Hopkins, this one and done kind of performance. And he gives us classic Anthony Hopkins. You get everything you love about him and this evil puppet master performance. So I do think they'll go a little elder statesman. If Sterling K. Brown was by himself, yes, I would predict him. But I don't think it's going to take Milo taking enough votes away from him. It's not going to take a lot of votes to maybe split this.
Tom O'Brien, is your mic working? I'm so sorry. I still can't hear you. Andrew, a lot of people would say to Amanda, listen, Anthony Hopkins, he didn't get in at SAG. He didn't get in at the Golden Globes. So why should we expect him to win here? But in favor of Amanda's argument, last year with the popular vote, we did see a lot of head-scratching winners like Ben Mendelsohn in Bloodline, like Tatiana Maslany in Orphan Black. So is she onto something here?
She could be, but I think that it needs to be part of a greater.
I'm not crazy. Come on.
I'm actually predicting it with you, Amanda. So you're not.
I know we're both going down that rabbit hole in a lot of these categories together.
Andrew, though, please tell us.
Sorry.
Greater world. I don't see Hopkins winning. And for instance, I don't think Hopkins can be the sole victory tonight. I think that would be a little bit odd. I am predicting Brown to win tonight, but he is a soft frontrunner. He's not Julia Louis-Dreyfus level frontrunner by any stretch. I'm actually keeping an eye on Bob Odenkirk, who has been campaigning very aggressively, who I think is seen as maybe a little bit due for a victory. Better Call Saul just has not performed in trends. So I think he's still got an uphill climb. I'm going with Brown. But, I could even see Spacey tonight. Who knows?
If Spacey wins this, then that means the show is going to win Best Drama Series, and that's not happening.
Well, now speaking though of Bob Odenkirk and Kevin Spacey, you know, since we don't have last year's winner Rami Malek in this category, that means that any of these guys can be deemed the front runner. Could Emmy voters though go for a Bob Odenkirk or a Kevin Spacey or even Matthew Rhys or Liev Schreiber, who have been nominated year after year, or in Matthew Rhys's case, just 1 year, but is still well overdue for the Americans? Could they though go for one of these guys who hasn't won in this category yet?
I think one thing we saw at the Creative Arts Emmys that we should pay attention to that we haven't really ever seen before is all of the winners for the drama side came from drama-nominated series. So for Matthew Rhys and Liev Schreiber, it probably does not equal an Emmy for them. I think the most likely when you get down to the two returners who are in nominated shows, Bob Odenkirk and Kevin Spacey, because I cannot see a path for how House of Cards wins drama series, I do see how if Bob Odenkirk won, and let's say it picked up writing, because that's an absolute possibility, yeah, he could definitely take it. But it would be the kind of shock that made me think Better Call Saul might just actually win drama series.
Andrew, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm actually predicting Better Call Saul to win Best Writing this evening. So I can see a connection between Odenkirk and writing, you know, delivering 2 victories. But I actually do think it's plausible for Spacey to win on his own without House of Cards taking Best Series. Just because if folks realize that he hasn't won before in this category, then, you know, there could be a little bit of an overdue factor season by any stretch.
Speaking of somebody who's overdue, let's talk about the most exciting race of the night, Best Actress in a Comedy Series. Got to get it out of the way. All right, so we've got Pamela Adlon in Better Things, Tracee Ellis Ross in Blackish, Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin in Grace and Frankie, Allison Janney in Mom, Ellie Kemper in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and some lady called Julia Louis-Dreyfus in a little show called Veep. Amanda, I know this is your favorite category, so that's why I wanted to have it for you. Is there any scenario by which Julia loses tonight?
No. I think she's just going to go 7 for 7. I mean, if they haven't tired of it by now, I don't see how she loses. I think really she should thank Lorne Michael for probably helping out a SNL alum and not bumping Kate McKinnon up to the lead category. Because I think if it wasn't an SNL alum, he might have done it, personally. But I don't see how she loses. I really honestly don't. Because if the series is going to win, how do you not reward her? So I don't see how it happens. We're probably going to see a 7 for 7 kind of thing.
And if she wins tonight, she ties Cloris Leachman with the most wins by an actress at the Primetime Emmys. But the same is true of Allison Janney and Mom. Andrew, you know, Allison Janney had a similar path with The West Wing where she won 2 awards in supporting. She goes up to lead and wins there. Can she do the same thing for Mom? Can she actually tie the record herself before Julia does?
Card. If anybody can take down Julia, it's going to be Allison. Even so, I think it's a long shot. I think had Allison Janney prevailed last year, that'd be a more compelling argument. Just because when Allison Janney moved up with The West Wing, she had won Drama Supporting Actress the year prior and the year prior to that. Allison Janney having lost last year, I think, makes it harder to rationalize her scoring the upset tonight. That being said, her submission is very Emmy friendly. It's very similar to the episode that won Roseanne an Emmy back in the day. It's a solid submission, and if submissions still matter, she'll certainly be helped by that. Even so, I think she's a pretty heavy underdog, and the others I don't really see having much of a prayer. Even the SAG Lifetime Achievement winner, Lily Tomlin, who is going to end up getting votes taken away from her by Jane Fonda.
It's a shame we're not under the old system, because under the old system, I think Lily Tomlin would have an outsider's chance at winning, because Jane Fonda kind of helps her out, because you get 2 doses of her over-the-top character. But unfortunately, we're not. So I think in a popular vote, yeah, I don't think we're going to see many female-centered comedies next year because we might as well just hold off till she's out of it.
Well, what about a newcomer, though, like Pamela Adlon for Better Things? I mean, could that be the thing that finally knocks Julia out? But, I mean, we haven't seen a newcomer take her out before. Could it be it?
No, I think it's one of those where, like, the nomination is the reward. She had the passion to get in there, but I think when you get down to a popular vote, who's more popular than Julia Louis-Dreyfus? And she always gives a great acceptance speech. I mean, she delivered at SAG, so it's just too. Kate McKinnon's the only one who could have beat her, and Lauren Michael didn't put her in the lead. So if she loses, he's going to think I should have put her in the lead.
Absolutely. Let's talk about a little bit more competitive category, supporting actor in a limited series and made-for-TV movie. There we've got two guys from Feud, Alfred Molina and Stanley Tucci, two guys from The Night Of, Bill Camp and Michael Kenneth Williams. We've got Alexander Skarsgard in Big Little Lies and David Thewlis in Fargo. Amanda, I believe last time we talked, you were saying it's going to be Alexander Skarsgard. Did the casting win over at the Creative Arts Emmys for Big Little Lies just kind of set that in stone for you?
It did, and I think the problem is the vote splitting. None of those in the four stand out amongst each other. That's one of the problems. And then I cannot pick somebody from Fargo without an additional reason. Like, I can pick Carrie Coon because I think there's enough else going on there to help elevate her. But Fargo, in 8 past Emmy nominations, has never won an award, so I can't pick David Thewlis, which only leaves me with Alexander Skarsgård. And he is not as unknown as people would like to believe. He was on True Blood, Emmy nominated. He was in Generation Kill, Emmy winner. He's got that last name that people know. So I think it's just kind of lined up really well for him.
But interestingly enough, Andrew, this is one of the few categories last year where we did not see a vote split. Sterling K. Brown was able to beat two of his co-stars from The People versus O.J. Simpson. Is there a possibility that one of the Feud guys or one of the Night Of guys can win? And if so, which one?
I think it's definitely possible. That being said, I think Sterling K. Brown was so, I wouldn't say he was significantly better, but he was so far ahead of Travolta and Schwimmer that I don't know if Travolta and Schwimmer took that many votes away from him. Brown was just so spectacular. I think I actually see this race as pretty much a jump ball among all of the contenders, with the possible exception of Thewlis, just because I can't see, if Gene Smart couldn't win last year for a powerhouse performance of Fargo, I don't see how Fargo is going to be picking up wins this year. I'm actually going with, of all people, Stanley Tucci, because he has a pretty good track record at the Emmys. I think he's gone 3 for 7, so he's won roughly half the time. And I say that even though his submission is kind of eh. And I could see if tonight's a night for the Night Of, I think that Williams is certainly somebody to keep an eye on, just because he's been around. Yeah, he's been in the industry for so long, and fans of The Wire, they rally around him. And Bill Camp is phenomenal too. I don't see him winning, but damn, he is good.
That's the problem.
So again, I think Skarsgård is the safest one to go with, but just for the heck of it, I'm going with Tucci, just because I think it's closer than you might think.
Right. I mean, all these guys are so overdue. I can see any number of them winning. Let's talk about, you brought this up before, Andrew, and it's funny because I wanted to talk to you guys about this category anyway. Best Writing in a Drama Series. Read off the nominees real quick. We got episodes from The Americans, Better Call Saul, The Crown, The Handmaid's Tale, Stranger Things, and Westworld. Andrew, you said you're predicting Better Call Saul to win. Tell us a little bit why. Why are you going out on a limb with this one?
So again, I think this could go several different ways. Perhaps I'm a little bit biased because I so love this season of Better Call Saul, but I think if it's going to prevail anywhere tonight, it's going to be in writing. And I think that fans of Michael McKean's performance, somehow not recognized this year, may rally around this episode, which was his big showcase, the episode that should have won him the Emmy. That being said, I think this category could go so many different ways. If Stranger Things or Westworld is going to be like almost sweeping tonight, this probably gets swept up among those wins. That said, I think this is a good chance to reward Better Call Saul. And, you know, again, it's one hell of an episode. You can go so many different ways with this one.
It's a very writerly episode as well. I mean, it's kind of like a one-act play. You could say the same thing about The Crown being very writerly. The Handmaid's Tale is literary. But Amanda, you know, 2 years in a row, we saw this award go to Game of Thrones as a part of a sweep. And I think that people would look at those episodes as being more achievements in directing than in writing. What do you think? I mean, can something like Stranger Things get carried along in a sweep here?
I do, but I think the difference between, first of all, I just want to say for the writers and directors, just to give them a little credit, even in a popular vote, I still see how if we were in an 80-person panel, the past winners in the last 2 years would have won. Mm-hmm. Now, that being said, I don't think we're going to see sweeps this year. I think we're going to see a lot of shows get a lot of love. I agree about Chicanery and Better Call Saul. It is a very writerly Aaron Sorkin, A Few Good Men kind of episode. But I would look out for Peter Morgan because they, and not to sound like a xenophobe, but they do love to award British writers. We have seen it so many times on the limited series sides where it just upset after upset after upset. He is a very well-known and respected writer. They know he wrote all 10. I don't know why he doesn't get to compete for all 10. The rules are so crazy. I'm going with The Handmaid's Tale because I think it is a great place to award it. I think it's a great episode. There's no chance for vote splitting like it has in directing. I really think this is one of those where you could see almost but I would say the Americans win because it's not in drama series.
And I mean, to go back to your point about Peter Morgan, you know, he is a very prestigious writer. He's a two-time Oscar nominee. Andrew, does that help somebody like him?
Tony nominee also.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it absolutely does. I'm skeptical The Crown is going to be a smash tonight, taking tons of prizes. But I could certainly see a scenario where Lithgow and a victory here happen. Absolutely, for sure.
Can this award, I mean, with the exception of the Americans, can this award earn award for directing? Can that signal how they're going to go for drama series?
Absolutely. I have Stephen Daldry winning directing for The Crown because we've seen the last 3 years the biggest episode win. And I don't think that necessarily means everything CGI, everything, blowing up. There is something very big about leaving the country a princess and then finding out a couple days later you're the Queen of England. So there is a very big scale to that episode. And they love, if you are an Oscar nominee or not winner in a nominated series, you typically win. That's why Steven Soderbergh never won for The Knick the past 2 years. The show wasn't nominated. So I'm going with him because really, I think any of them could win, but I think The Handmaid's Tale splits the vote because I think there are going to be people who go for the pilot and there are going to be people who go for the bridge. There's not one over the other that's like the clear standout. I mean, we don't have a Battle of the Bastards this year where we're like, that's your director winner. Get your speech ready.
Andrew, do you think wins in writing and directing are going to help us? Because, I mean, this is the most highly competitive drama series race we've had in quite some time. Do you think that maybe those wins there are going to help us predict what's going to happen later on tonight?
Oh, I think so for sure. In directing specifically, I agree completely that the Stephen Daldry name is going to be very helpful. I think that if name recognition carries the day in that category, he probably will prevail. Have Stranger Things prevailing in this one. It's actually the only award that I'm predicting Stranger Things to win this evening. But much like writing, I think this one could go several different ways, with the obvious exception of Homeland.
And I will just say this, just to give This Is Us a little love and a chance to stir the pot for a drama series. If we see all these awards, writing and directing, splitting, and you start seeing This Is Us hold the line as far as the acting awards go, it could absolutely, without the writing or directing nomination, be your drama winner. I will say the one thing about the casting award for Stranger Things is even though they do have producers and directors in there now, not just casting directors, it's the one where you could kind of see why they would award it, because, you know, it's hard to find 5 great kid actors and then a handful of like teenagers. So we could still see Handmaid's Tale or The Crown or This Is Us win, even though Stranger Things won casting, because, you know, finding kid actors is hard. So just to stir the pot for This Is Us.
We are in uncharted territory, as I said earlier before when I was talking about this that category with Rob and Sam. You know, 5 brand new series nominated against 2 series that have never won before. This can go any number of ways. So we are looking for these little wins here and there to tell us what the Academy as a whole is looking for. I wanted to talk about another category, Best Variety Talk Series. We've got last year's winner last week tonight with John Oliver competing against Full Frontal with Samantha Bee, Jimmy Kimmel Live, The Late Late Show with James Corden, Real Time with Bill Maher, and The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Amanda, is John Oliver just going to win this again? Or is there the possibility that maybe Stephen Colbert, having had a really good season and getting in for the first time for this show, can he upset, or can somebody else like Samantha Bee also nominated for the first time?
I think if anyone upsets, it's Samantha Bee, and I think that it would be awesome to see her win. It's been 20 years since a woman has won this category, and that was way back when it was combined with Sketches with Tracy Ullman, ironically, and back herself. But I don't see how anyone beats John Oliver, because if you add up the other 4 nominees in the show's total Emmy nominations, they barely get over what John Oliver had. So I just don't see how he loses this year. And I don't think being the host is really going to help him. It didn't help Jimmy. It didn't help Jimmy Kimmel. It didn't help Jimmy Fallon when he hosted. So yeah, it's just a shame. But I think John Oliver is just going to keep it for a while. They love to repeat in this category.
That's also, I mean, you know, politics are on the brain with a lot of these nominees, and we're going to see how much they are on the brain with some of these winners. Andrew, does it help or hurt somebody like John Oliver or Samantha Bee, Bill Maher, Stephen Colbert, doing so much of their show based in what's going on in the world today, so much in the Trump administration? Or could we possibly see some kind of Trump and politics fatigue, in which case they might go for James Corden or maybe even Jimmy Kimmel, although he does deal with politics a lot in his show?
Yeah, I'm sure if we're going to see a conservative mindset suddenly rallying around Jimmy Kimmel Live in this category. I would agree that John Oliver's a front runner, but I think that Samantha is heels. I think she's totally. I wouldn't totally count out Colbert either, or forget it. But I would agree. I think John Oliver's the front runner, but he's a softer front runner than you might think. And I think that Samantha Bee could totally score the upset here, which would be awesome. She would give a great speech.
Well, Samantha Bee, she did win an Emmy at the Creative Arts for the Not the White House Correspondents' Dinner in the writing category. Does that help her, Amanda, potentially? Does that show some kind of full frontal love?
I think if she's going to upset in any category, it might be writing again, because I wonder if being on TBS might be her biggest hurdle to overcome, because that is a big award to give to TBS. When you're thinking about, you've got all 4 of them, you've got 3 of the major networks, HBO, and you've got TBS in there. That might be the one kind of factor that's maybe holding her back. But I do think if they are going to go political, if they know she is the only, it's been 20 years since they've awarded a woman, and that's a big if, then that could happen. You know, I wouldn't mind seeing her smash the glass ceiling.
Stay right where you guys are. I want to go ahead and invite Riley Chow and David Buchanan to start getting on here, but don't go anywhere, because I want to stick with this variety series categories and talk about directing for a variety series where we've got Drunk History, Jimmy Kimmel Live, Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and Saturday Night Live. Andrew, what's going to win here? I mean, Saturday Night Live has always sort of been a default winner here. Is it going to be a default winner here this year as well?
I suspect so, especially since it's been such a talked about and acclaimed year for it. I'd be shocked if it lost here. I suppose that John Oliver would be the runner-up, but probably a very distant runner-up at that.
Amanda, could a win here for either John Oliver or Stephen Colbert or Jimmy Kimmel kind of signal a win for one of those shows in the variety talk category, or is it just going to be Saturday Night Live?
For writing?
For directing.
For directing? Possibly, because I don't see how anything but SNL wins this, just because of the sketch aspect of it and doing it live. But I do think if anyone's going to beat it, it would be John Oliver. I don't really see how, I really don't see how any of these talk shows win that. I mean, I think the bigger question, the thing that would make John Oliver a little nervous is if he lost writing to anything other than SNL. That would make that would be a lot more nerve-wracking for him if it were me playing along.
And Saturday Night Live has done better this year at the Emmys than it has in a long time with those 22 nominations. While we're waiting on David Buchanan, Riley, why don't you get your take on directing for a variety series? Do you think it's just going to be Saturday Night Live again?
Yeah, they usually win.
Well, thank you very much. And now that David's here, Amanda, Andrew, thank you both so much. Good luck with your Emmy predictions. Let's keep this train moving right along. Riley and David, I want to talk about...
Have a good night.
You too as well. So Riley, I want to talk about your favorite category, and that is for Best TV Movie. We have Black Mirror nominated against Dolly Parton's Christmas of Many Colors, Circle of Love, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, Sherlock, The Lying Detective, and The Wizard of Lies. Riley, you have very strong opinions about this category, so why don't you tell us a little bit about what you think is going to win here?
Well, my strong opinion is that it needs to be scrapped, but or at least rejiggered at least so that Black Mirror and Sherlock are not in it. I'm predicting Black Mirror, but I don't think any of these have a lot of passion, since they all have around 3 or 4 nominations, or they're not in any other categories.
David, I mean, we often saw the sort of rubber stamp for a movie by HBO to win this category, so that would make either Wizard of Lies or Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks seem like the front runners. But last year, they lost for a pretty obvious favorite all the way to something to Sherlock, The Lying Detective. Is there the possibility that Sherlock is going to win here again?
Yeah, I think I have it in second. I have Black Mirror just like Riley does in first. To your comment on HBO, coming into it, you would think Wizard of Lies would have a really strong chance, but for some reason, critical consensus wasn't there. It felt like it had been done already since they were bested by ABC in terms of timing. Their version of it came out a year before, so it seemed like it was an Emmy contender, and I just don't think there's any passion for it. I think I have it still, that being said, in third place, though.
I'm surprised it got casting and Michelle Pfeiffer, honestly. I thought that it would really bomb. So it's still in there.
But it did lose out in a lot of key nominations. I mean, places you think like Barry Levinson getting nominated for directing, or Hank Azaria in supporting actor. Yeah. So, I mean, it does feel like a very soft contender. But is there anything else to talk about in this category other than what we touched upon? All right, moving on to a much more competitive race, that is for Best Drama Actress. There we have Viola Davis for How to Get Away with Murder, a previous winner, Claire Foy for The Crown, Elisabeth Moss for The Handmaid's Tale, Kerry Russell for The Americans, Evan Rachel Wood for Westworld, and Robin Wright for House of Cards. Riley, last year's winner, Tatiana Maslany, like every winner in the drama categories, is not here. Are they going to, it seems like Elisabeth Moss is pretty much the clear frontrunner, right? Is there the potential for an upset there?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Zach. Did you say this was a very competitive category?
I did, yeah. Maybe poor choice of words. What did you think, Riley?
Yeah, I'm going with Elisabeth Moss, just like everyone else.
Well, David, is there the potential, though, for an upset? Claire Foy did win the Golden Globe and the SAG Award, so are we underestimating her to win here?
I have Claire Foy in second, like I think probably everybody does. I was listening earlier to the show, and Rob was kind of talking about how we might be underestimating the support that The Crown still has. So I guess there's an outside chance that Claire Foy could win, but since The Handmaid's Tale debuted, the momentum has been entirely on its side. So I have Elisabeth Moss as well.
But David, somebody might say to you in argument, you know, she couldn't win for Mad Men. She couldn't win for Top of the Lake. So why should we expect her to win now?
Yeah, I'm a bit skeptical. I agree, other than the fact that it seems like it's the right role and the right show at the right time. And the timing of when it debuted, their campaigning, it feels like she has all of those key elements on her side this time. That being said, if she does lose to Claire Foy, I don't know if I'll ever predict her again until she finally wins.
We know that they like repeats. There's only one previous winner in this category, that is Viola Davis for How to Get Away with Murder. She is just coming off of an Oscar win. I mean, Riley, is there any chance at all for some kind of surprise like that?
Well, she did win 2 years ago under a different form of the popular vote, so you could make that argument. I do think it's fun that The Crown, you know, they won 2 awards last week. They're favored to win 1 tonight. So that's 3 wins out of 13 nominations. And then we've also got Feud, which is up for 19. They won 2 last week, and they're up for that. They're not really favored for anything this week. And so that might put an end to the whole idea that there is such a thing as Emmy bait.
Let's talk about, I guess, a much more competitive category than that one was. Best Lead Actor in a Comedy Series. We have 2-time winner Jeffrey Tambor for Transparent competing against Anthony Anderson for Blackish, Aziz Ansari for Master of None, Zach Galifianakis for Baskets, Donald Glover in Atlanta, who won the Golden Globe, and William H. Macy, who won the SAG for Shameless. You know, Riley, as we said, they love repeats, so conventional wisdom would tell us to pick Jeffrey Tambor, but Transparent's not back in for Comedy Series. He lost SAG to William H. Macy, and it's been, I think, over 30 years since somebody won this award 3 times in a row. Should we be predicting Jeffrey Tambor, or do you have somebody else?
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty nicely there. I'm going with Donald Glover just because he doesn't seem like the strongest front runner, but I don't know about any of these other guys either. It's just kind of a similar situation to a TV movie, so I'm just going with the front runner, Donald Glover. I think that people recognize what a great year he's had.
I have Tambor, actually. Sorry to cut you off, Zach, but I am sticking with Tambor kind of for the same reason that Riley is, in the sense that I don't quite know what to make of the rest of the crop, and there's such a tendency in the comedy categories to repeat winners. I know we're in a different system, but you know, I think that there's still a passion for Transparent within the acting branch. It has supporting actress nominations too. Kathryn Hahn was a surprise nomination to me anyway. So I think that support alone could maybe carry him to another win.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, you know, Transparent, it did receive 7 nominations, which means it's gotten more than some of the shows that's even nominated for Comedy Series, including 3 in those acting categories. But again, I mean, he lost SAG to William H. Macy, who has been nominated. I believe this is his 4th nomination in this category for Shameless, but he hasn't won for the show yet. What about somebody like him, or even like an Anthony Anderson, who hasn't won yet for Blackish and has been out here campaigning like crazy to win? What about somebody, is there an outside chance for somebody else to upset?
I feel like we haven't really talked about Aziz Ansari all season, actually, because we kind of figured that Atlanta was the alternative to Veep. Now it seems that there is no alternative to Veep, but it could be argued that Master of None did better in the nominations than Atlanta. So if they are going for one of these auteurs, maybe he's actually more likely than Donald Glover.
David, any opinion on that?
I think a lot of the other candidates have merit. I mean, SAG is a really good indicator of the support within the acting branch. So absolutely, William H. Macy could win. I just don't see, you know, when we're talking about passion vote, I don't know where the passion for Shameless is. So if they're passionate about him, he could win. But SAG, you know, we've seen a lot of winners at SAG that don't correlate with Emmys. You know, Betty White winning Comedy Actress twice, but she couldn't break into the Emmy race for that role. So, you know, I'm weary to put too much stock into that. So, yeah, I'm not sure.
Could a win for Donald Glover here or in some of the other categories tonight, could that signal maybe, I mean, Atlanta did not do very well at all at the Creative Arts Emmys. Veep pretty much trounced it there. But do we need to necessarily look at the Creative Arts Emmys? Riley, you know this better than anybody. You're a stats guy. Do we need to necessarily look at the Creative Arts Emmys as an indication of what's going to happen tonight?
I think we do. The reason I love talking about the casting category is because it combines the three groups of voters: producers, directors, and casting directors. And that's only a recent thing that's happened in the last 3 years. So you've got a whole bunch of different voters. So you've got, you know, people who think differently, and you've also got a lot of voters. So that's why it should be so indicative of what's going to happen. Atlanta underperformed in general. So like it was kind of an outside choice, not too much logic to it. I was kind of banking on it that it had a chance under this new system, but I would say at this point it doesn't. So,
David, any thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I think in terms of the top category, casting is very indicative. I think, and you've talked about the other categories that Atlanta has a shot. I think it'll win probably directing. In combination, number one, they're going to be looking for a place to reward it for its achievement, but also because Veep is competing against itself in so many categories.
I'm really interested to see what happens over at the limited series side, because, you know, we talk about casting, and then usually whatever picks up casting goes along to win the series in the last couple of years because of how they've changed voting and all that kind of stuff. But it's not just casting that the series winner has, whereas I feel like this year you've got Big Little Lies, which has the casting award, and then you've got the Night Of, which kind of has, you know, everything else. So can the below the line people carry a show to the win? Like, we don't actually have any numbers of what the breakdown of branches is, so that's unfortunate. Yeah.
Speaking of limited series, I did want to talk about a category from over on that side, supporting actress. We've got two ladies from Feud, Judy Davis and Jackie Hoffman, two ladies from Big Little Lies, Laura Dern and Shailene Woodley. We've got last year's winner and the year before's winner, Regina King for American Crime, and Michelle Pfeiffer for The Wizard of Lies. Riley, you know, I think this is a tough category in some respects, but on the other hand, you could just say, well, Regina King won 2 years in a row. Why not just pick her again?
Yeah, I changed a lot of my predictions over the last week. I feel like more than I usually do after the Creative Arts. I feel like last year we saw a lot of winners where they went with the character actors over the people who have everything. And then this year we saw them, at least in the guest races, kind of go with more of the consensus front runners. So I kind of shifted some things around, but I still feel that Laura Dern or Alec Baldwin are people who are not going to derive a lot of sympathy from the general voting branch of the Academy. So I'm going with kind of the more unsung heroes of the industry, who are Regina King and Louis Anderson.
But, you know, David, I mean, Laura Dern, she is sort of the front runner over at Gold Derby. She has had a really good year between this, and she's also been on Twin Peaks during voting. She was in contention to be the president of the Movie Academy, although, I mean, that didn't really work out as we thought it would. She's also never won an Emmy before. So is there the possibility, I mean, why do you think she's sort of taken that frontrunner status?
Yeah, I have her predicted. I think it's, first of all, to your point about her Emmy history, she did have a lot of support when she contended for Enlightened. It was never enough to win, but if you think back to the dialogue of the time that she was nominated, she had a pretty passionate group of people supporting her. So, you know, fans of hers, I think, in her career could certainly bring her to a win. She's in the front runner for limited series. She has this really, even though Riley's debunking the theory, she has an Emmy bait kind of performance. She screams. She's really off the walls. And like you said, she's having a really good year. So I could absolutely see her winning. In terms of vote splitting with Woodley, I mean, if it was me voting, there, you know, I would vote for Dern. But I do know that a lot of people do like and prefer Woodley. So I'm not 100% confident in what I'm doing here.
I wonder if voters actually know that Laura Dern is overdue, because like we saw Hugh Laurie, you know, he's somebody who's been nominated 10 times. And he hasn't won an Emmy, but we have actually seen him on stage 3 times at the Golden Globes giving these acceptance speeches. And it's the same thing for Laura Dern. She's been nominated for Oscars and Emmys, but she has won 3 Golden Globes.
And speaking of vote splitting, I mean, we saw a lot of this last year, but we didn't necessarily see it in the movie and mini categories because a lot of those were just for O.J. Simpson people. And we didn't see it necessarily at the Creative Arts Emmys. Riley, you bring up Hugh Laurie, and it seemed like he could just beat out the 3 guys from Saturday Night Live and the 2 guys from Girls in order to finally win, but he still lost to a Saturday Night Live guy. Melissa McCarthy, it didn't hurt her vote splitting with Kristen Wiig. So should we really necessarily worry about vote splitting in this category or in maybe some of the other acting categories?
Yeah, we'll find out tonight where it mattered and where it didn't. I want to say shame on all of us not forgetting Dave Chappelle.
Yes, indeed.
I
said
in hindsight, yeah, that one's not a good one on us, but
I've said in our for the record, I did say in our Slugfest about that category that he was a strong contender and could take some votes away from Tom Hanks. I didn't know he would take so many votes away that he would win, but moving right along, I wanted to talk about another category, comedy series writing. There we have the last year's champion, Master of None. We also have 2 episodes from Atlanta, Ban and Streets on Lock. We've got 2 episodes from Veep, Groundbreaking, and Georgia. And we have 1 episode from Silicon Valley, Success Failure. By the way, the Master of None episode was Thanksgiving. Riley, is Master of None just going to win here again, or does it face some competition from Atlanta or Veep, the comedy frontrunner?
Yeah, this is a category where I'm not sure if vote splitting is a factor or not. Same with directing. I mean, in the writing category, Atlanta, they're obviously beloved by writers because they won new series and they won comedy series at the Writers Guild Awards. So if they are that dominant, and the writers are also pretty good at telling episodes apart. I remember a couple of years ago when they nominated 5-0 over the Better Call Saul pilot because that was the Mike episode, or even going back to last year when they nominated or when they awarded Marsha over, say, the pilot again from People versus O.J. Simpson. So if they really like Atlanta and we can kind of see that this branch is savvy enough to tell what episodes are what, then BAN should be able to pull off a win for Donald Glover. On the directing side, Veep overcame vote splitting at the DGA Awards to take down Atlanta. So we could see the same thing there where, there is a clear choice.
David, give us your thoughts on this category. We did see some vote splitting last year with all of the Veep episodes, but to Riley's point, writers are able to differentiate between the episodes. Is it really going to matter in this new voting system?
I think it matters less this year for Veep than it did last year because, last year we thought there was a clear front runner for Veep with Mother, but it was such a strong consensus it was such a strong season that you could clearly see votes going to other episodes. With just, is it Georgia nominated for writing for Veep?
Georgia and Groundbreaking.
Yeah, with Georgia nominated opposite Groundbreaking, I think consensus is Groundbreaking was the best episode of the season, even by people who thought season 6 was weaker. So I don't think, Georgia will be siphoning off any votes. That being said, I still have Master of None winning writing this year.
And again, I mean, is this the place where you reward a show like a Master of None or even a Silicon Valley? I mean, we often see if they're going to spread the love out a little bit throughout these different shows, is this the place, or in directing, is this the place to reward them?
Yeah, we haven't seen enough years yet in that we've only seen one under this system. We can't tell, are they going for the most writerly episode or are they just going for whatever's ahead in the series race unless there's like a vote splitting factor. It is concerning, I think, for Veep that they weren't able to pull off a win in casting where they were double nominated, and then Master of None was able to pull off the win for its only submission that was actually nominated.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Did you say in casting or?
Yeah. What? Yeah.
Oh, sorry, in editing.
Editing. Okay. Thanks. Let's move on to, I think this is the last category we've got to talk about, and that is for variety sketch series, the biggest nail biter of the night. We have Billy on the Street, Documentary Now, Drunk History, Portlandia, Saturday Night Live, Tracy Ullman's Show. Riley, is there even a reason to think that Saturday Night Live's not going to win here?
Well, Gold Derby was not very good at calling this category last year. And
I predicted Key and Peele just for
there you go. Yeah. So what do you have this time?
I have Saturday Night Live.
All right.
But you think okay? It's my David. What do you think? Is there do any of these shows have the potential for an upset?
I suppose so, but if I think I heard this in a different slugfest, if Saturday Night Live can't win this year, I can't see them winning this category in the foreseeable future. So it's really clearly out front.
While I have you guys, since we have 10 minutes left, I just want to get your take on the top series races. Drama series, 5 brand new shows, 2 shows that haven't won yet. Riley, I mean, conventional wisdom would tell us to go with Stranger Things since it had a strong showing at the Creative Arts Emmys. But is there still a chance that something like Handmaid's Tale can win?
Yeah, what about why did The Handmaid's Tale beat Westworld for production design?
I agree.
Westworld is this huge production. I mean, Westworld did have 2 episodes, so maybe vote splitting was a factor. But I would think that, like, it's a new show. You would vote for the pilot where they actually made all the sets, as opposed to the finale where they made, you know, whatever new sets they needed for that episode. I mean, like, we saw in editing where Stranger Things was nominated against itself. But again, like, the pilot was the clear choice over the other one. So then it was able to pull off the win there. I am going with Stranger Things. I'm actually going for a bit of a Stranger Things sweep because that's just what we've seen the last couple of years. So I do have it in writing, even though that's not a common choice. But yeah, again, I don't think Battle of the Bastards was the most writerly episode, and it took down Mr. Robot, which won the Writers Guild Award for New Series. It took down The Americans, which won the Writers Guild Award for Drama Series. And Stranger Things, it does have that casting and editing combination that has gone on to, like, a writing, directing series win every time in the last couple of years, unless vote splitting has been a factor.
David, is this just a 2-show race, or is there the possibility of something like This Is Us or Westworld, which did have a strong showing at the Creative Arts, or maybe one of these returning shows, if enough of the new ones siphon off votes from each other? Is there the possibility of a spoiler here?
I'm weary of the returning shows, but I think many of the new ones have a significant chance. You know, I liked the argument that Amanda was making about This Is Us, where they submitted so many episodes in writing and directing on the ballot. It doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't have support in those categories. It meant that the support was really fractured. So you could definitely see them missing out in those categories, maybe winning an acting race. I think I have it winning lead actor. I don't have it winning anything else in acting, but you know, you could make an argument that it could win drama series. So yeah, I could see quite a few of them having potential. I have Stranger Things winning. I have it winning directing as well. I don't have it in writing. But you know, I was skeptical of Stranger Things before the SAG Awards, and it proved me wrong. I was skeptical going into the Emmys, and it's been building momentum. So I'm finally on the train.
Is there the possibility, Riley, that Veep could lose comedy series to Atlanta, or did those victories at the Creative Arts Emmys pretty much solidify its lead status?
Well, what was surprising about the Creative Arts was not that Veep took down Atlanta in that one category, because, you know, who knows? It has won the category the last 2 years. It's the only place they face off. But also, like, why did it win cinematography? And why did Silicon Valley beat it 2 years ago in production design? Like, was the race closer back then? Is Veep actually further ahead than it's ever been? Possibly.
David, is there any reason to doubt it?
I mean, on production design, it was clear that they had to really build an entirely new universe for the show this year. So that I can definitely understand why previous years, if it's just the West Wing set, not a big deal. But this year, creating an entirely new universe for the characters. I have it predicted. I think it's going to win, but I really wouldn't rule out Atlanta. I don't know if Gold Derby is just an echo chamber where, you know, there are detractors of Veep who really dislike the season, and that's kind of invading my psyche and saying, well, there's a chance that it could lose. But, you know, there is a contingent of people that really didn't like the 6th season. So, you know, going just on quality, I think last year it had a much stronger chance of winning than it does this year.
What are the biggest upsets you guys are individually predicting? Riley, is there something that that we're not going to see coming?
I've got Stranger Things in writing. I have Louis Anderson, Regina King. Well, I'll say one that I'm very wary of is The Voice taking down RuPaul's Drag Race. That's one that I just kind of took for granted all season that RuPaul would win, just because everybody said it, and I don't really care about the category that much, so I didn't really do my homework on it. But now that I have done my homework, then did you know that The Voice is nominated for 10 Emmys this year, which is 4 more than it had last year? So, like, what's that about? That's more than RuPaul. And RuPaul didn't actually take down The Voice in any category in which they were competing head-to-head last week. I mean, it won costumes because, of course, and it won RuPaul because, that was just kind of a random collection of hosts. And then it won editing. And if you've seen the show, like, there's just editing all over the place. The Voice isn't even nominated for editing, but out of the 3 times it's won, it's only been in the editing category once. They've just never really been there for the show. And this year they also submitted multiple episodes, unlike last year, so that probably hurt it. So yeah, ultimately I went back to RuPaul because of the Trump factor, but watch out for that one.
David, are you predicting any major upsets tonight?
I don't think so. Thinking about the final predictions that I logged, I don't think I am deviating too far from the front runners. That being said, I am really concerned about an upset in a lot of the mini movie acting races. I'm not confident about lead actor. I'm not confident in supporting actor. I'm not confident in supporting actress in those categories. So even though I'm voting on party line there, I am really skeptical that that's going to pan out the way that I am predicting it will.
What about all 3 lead actor categories? Those ones I feel like are all
over the place.
Yeah.
Very soft front runners. Yeah. Also, San Junipero in writing. That's another upset. Yeah.
What would be one win, not necessarily something you're predicting, but one win that would absolutely make you jump up and down in joy, each of you? What would be one of those wins?
Well, I really want to see the writers not just go with whatever the series winner is. Like, if Big Little Lies takes writing, I have it in 3rd because I don't think it's that strong. And if Stranger Things takes writing, but I think it's just a sad day for the future of the Emmys because the writers don't really have an identity of their own. They'll just be choosing whatever is the series winner.
David, how about you?
That's a good point, although I don't think that's going to, at least in comedy and drama, I'm not predicting writing to go the way series goes. So I'm not too concerned about that. I'll give a very vanilla answer and then I'll try to justify it. I am probably one of the few that will be ecstatic to see Julia win 6 in a row, partly because I still love the series and partly because to me, it would be a shame to see her get this close to history making and then kind of fumble it so close to the touchdown. So I just, when is the next time we're going to see this kind of run at a category? She better just finish it.
We're just a few minutes away from the Emmy starting. I want to thank you both. Thank to all of our panelists for being on here, and thanks to all of you at home for watching. Make sure that you watch our show after the Emmys. It's going to be hosted by Mr. Riley Chow. We're going to be talking about all of the winners and losers in the predictions races there. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you.
Zach.
Good luck at the Emmys.